Okay, everybody, that's my tribute to Lance Russell, the old wrestling announcer from Memphis. If anybody remembers him, I just had to work that in. It just popped in my head. But let's just jump right into This Week in Appalachian History. First of all, I want to welcome a new patron. Christian Williams joined the team, and that's the first one we've had in a little while, so very much appreciate your support of what we're doing here on the channel. Melody and I most appreciate you. Let's get kicked off with August 2nd in 1984. A man was born by the name of J.D. Vance. He was born in Middleton, Ohio. He's an author, venture capitalist, and aspiring politician. He's actually running for the Senate in Ohio currently. So he rose to fame on the heels of his book, Hillbilly Elegy, or the more formal name, Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and a culture in crisis. And in this book, he speaks of his dealings with his perspective on Appalachian values and of how they applied to his Kentucky family and their struggles with poverty, drug addiction, and other struggles that are fairly common, and I won't even say fairly, very common in Appalachia. For some reason he's become quite a controversial figure, but it does appear that a lot of that is based on what you now see as a cancel culture, where if you don't have the proper mindset, a lot of people will attack you and try to get you ran out of the building. So fortunately he survived that, because I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. Very much related to a lot of what was talked about in that movie. Of course, everybody's situation is individual, but I thought it was a good movie and hope to read the book now. I steered away from it because there was so much hate thrown in this direction that I assumed I wouldn't like it, but now I think I'll probably like it. Based on the people that don't like it, I don't like the people that don't like the book, so for the most part. I won't say that about everybody. Anyhows, now moving on to August 3rd, John Scopes was born in 1900. He's a teacher in Dayton, Tennessee, and was charged with violating Tennessee's Butler Act, which prohibited the teaching of evolution in public schools in the state at the time. And what became known as the Scopes Monkey Trial, Scopes went on trial to challenge the legality of this act, and looking to gain some publicity, some local businessmen actually gathered around and made an offer to Mr. Scopes to basically serve as a fall guy, to claim that he taught evolution in school. The prosecuting team was led by Tom Stewart, and he was helped by Herbert and Sue Hicks. And the reason I like to mention Sue Hicks is because, on a completely side and unrelated note, Sue Hicks would eventually go on to speak in Gatlinburg at a legal convention in which Shel Silverstein was in attendance. So Shel Silverstein thought his name was funny and ended up composing the song A Boy Named Sue, which of course went on to be made most famous by Johnny Cash. So Sue Hicks somehow jumps up to A Boy Named Sue. Also on that team was William Jennings Bryan and William Jennings Bryan Jr. And of course William Jennings Bryan is most remembered for running 3 times unsuccessfully for presidency on the Democratic ticket. The defense included Clarence Darrow and Dudley Malone, and so they were both very prominent defense attorneys during the time. Scopes was ultimately found guilty and fined $100 after quite the spectacle, as it drew tons of media attention and ended up just being a measly $100 fine. The Butler Act was actually upheld too. It was upheld to be constitutional and wasn't repealed until 1967. Scopes himself tried with limited success to stay out of the public eye after the trial because of the notoriety that he earned during it, but he was dragged back into it quite often after that. Moving on to August 4th, as part of a goodwill tour following his first solo transatlantic flight, Charles Lindbergh landed the Spirit of St. Louis at Langen Field in Moundsville, West Virginia. And the Moundsville Journal reported an enthusiastic crowd of about 12 to 15,000 people witnessed the landing. A road sign that you'll see up there now estimates it was 140,000 people that saw it. So I don't know where the disparity is coming from, if that was one of those things that maybe the 12 to 15 was a very specific location and the rest was a more broad terms, or what. If somebody could steer me clear of that in the comments, I would love to know that, because I could not find a really definitive answer on that. But once Lindbergh arrived, to much fanfare, he was driven to Wheeling, and along the way he passed a cheering crowd who just adored the man. He was probably the most famous person in the country at that time, and he ended up having a raucous welcome and went on his merry way to continue his goodwill tour. August 6th, 1959 in London, Kentucky, Darrell Scott was born. Really, he's a singer-songwriter, but I really don't have to say anything more than "You'll Never Leave Harlan Alive." He is the composer of that song, and he actually sang a version of it himself. Of course, Brad Paisley sang a version that was heard on the wildly popular TV show Justified about Harlan County, and of course Patti Lovasz has sang a very popular version as well. If you don't know that song, I'm telling you, stop this video right now, go look it up, and come back and thank me in the comments, because it is one of the best songs you'll ever hear. In the deep dark hills of eastern Kentucky, it's the place where I trace my bloodline. It was there anyway, I want to You'll never leave Harlan alive. I can't do it justice. Darrell Scott does. Brad Paisley does. Patti Lovasz does. He also wrote a song called "It's a Great Day to Be Alive" that Travis Tritt made famous. I think a lot of people remember that too. I got rice cooking in the microwave. Anyway, stop. August 7th, 1893 was known as the Tucker County Seat War. Broke out. And there was a dispute between Parsons and St. George in West Virginia over which one would be the county seat of Tucker County. So in 1888 and 1889, a man by the name of Ward Parsons petitioned to have an election to move the county seat to Parsons. An election occurred in 1890, and the vote failed to approve the change. And it was short of the 60% percentage needed to make the change. Another election was held in 1892, and it failed. But then in 1893, it finally passed, but leaders of St. George suspected some foul play, and they sought to have the results set aside. But before an investigation could even happen, an estimated somewhere between 200 to 1,000 or more armed citizens of Parsons marched on St. George for the purpose of taking the court's records, thereby moving the seat to Parsons by force. Counter gang formed in St. George, but the sheriff ordered them to disperse, leaving virtually no resistance to the Parsons vigilantes. They ended up taking all the records and a bail from the courthouse and took them back to Parsons, and believe it or not, today Parsons is the county seat. And St. George has sunk so far as it's now just an unincorporated community. So a big victory for the folks of Parsons. And that's this week in Appalachian History. I'll see you guys again next week for more singing, more wrestling references, and maybe another Hawaiian shirt if I don't do my laundry again like I didn't do this week. Thanks for watching.